Hi everyone, welcome to our live event. My name is Fernando Gonzalez and I am the Marketing Director at Bellatrix Software. Thanks everyone for joining us today. As I'm sure some of you haven't heard of us before, let me do a quick introduction. Bellatrix is a South American software innovation company with delivery centers located in Mendoza, Argentina and Lima, Peru. Just before we start and as we go through the content, I invite you to submit your questions using the box located to the right of your screen. We'll answer them in the last part of our webinar. So, are you a basketball fan? Are you a baseball fan? Did you enjoy the last Soccer World Cup? Do you watch the Super Bowl? If you did, I'm sure you're quite familiar with what a great team looks like. The concept of a great team, and that's a team that shines while achieving the tasks they're up to, is applicable to every aspect of life. Based on our experience of more than 200 projects successfully launched, we decided to share with you what we think the ideal team looks like in software outsourcing. In every software outsourcing partnership, the options are infinite. Blended teams, single teams, multiple locations, mixed teams, agile teams, non-agile teams, with or without a product owner, and so on. You name it, and we've more than probably been there. Today's webinar is about those lessons learned when it comes to creating the best team for your project. We'll cover composition, roles, methodologies, and the most critical decisions you'll face. Remember that as a special treat for all of you who attended this webinar, we'll give you a free 30-minute consulting session on how to create the best team for your project. This is a great opportunity, and you will be talking to experts with more than 10 years of experience creating and managing successful outsourcing teams, and I will give you more of this at the end of the webinar. Okay, let me hand controls to our guest speakers for today, Julieta Barronuevo and Gabriel Vázquez. Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Hello, guys. Good afternoon.
Great. So let's do something before we start. We want to know our audience a little bit better. So we have created two polls that you can answer online. You should be able to see one right now, and it's about your role. Let's give everyone a couple of seconds to answer. Okay, just a couple of more minutes. Okay, perfect. So as we can see in the results on the screen right now, we have 33% of CIOs and CTOs, and the rest are Scrum Masters. So great to know who we're dealing with. Let's go straight to the content. So, Julieta, you're in charge now. Should we start with the content overview?
Perfect. Yes. Well, to start, let's do a quick review of the topics that will be covered today. First, we will talk about the key factors of building an effective team. The ones that we consider that are really important when we are building successful teams. First, project scope, team size, team location, software development methodology, communications, and the last one is define roles and responsibilities. When we finish with the key factor, we will cover the real case studies that we will give you some sample that we face with real. Then we will go over frequently asked questions in the team for the creation process, and then question and answers. So, well, just let us start with the content.
Okay, great. Let's do a quick introduction to the content. So everyone knows that whenever we are engaging with a new customer or creating a new team for a current client, many questions arise. Some of these questions are: which is the business of the company? What is the goal for the specific project or projects that the company is going to outsource? Is it a desktop, a web, or a mobile project? Is it a project from scratch or an ongoing project? Is the architecture already defined? Are there any specific requirements? Is there a team currently working on the project? How big is that team and where is it located? Which is the user volume of the system? Is there any deadline? Is the UX and UI already designed? So many questions. We have collected these and many others, and those are questions that we usually receive or make during the early stages of the team formation. We have selected some of them to help you make better decisions. Today, Julieta and Gabriel will go over the key factors that will help you build successful teams. So, with no further introduction, let's start with the first key factor that must be analyzed right away, the project scope.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Fernando. So let's talk a little bit about the project scope. First, I think that it is the most important thing we need to understand in the first stage of when we are kicking off a project. During the first conversation, we can identify two different situations. The first one is when there is a clear project scope definition, and the second one when there is missing information or the project scope is unclear. Let's review each one of them. For the first one, we can say that this is the ideal situation. With a clear scope definition, we are able to establish measurable goals and objectives together with the client. This helps us to quickly understand the roles needed for the team and build the team faster. But it is not always the case. What happens if the scope definition is not defined or it is unclear? Sometimes companies are interested in outsource the development of their product, but they don't have a specific project yet in which the new team will start working on. In those cases, team size decisions are made mostly taking the budget into consideration. We agree with the client on the process and make suggestions based on our experience. So not having a clear project scope for the project is not an impediment. Depending on each situation, a proposal could be made for the team composition, but the important thing here is to understand that flexibility is very important. The software provider must have different and flexible engagement models to adapt to multiple scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that also applies when we are deciding on the team size. So I think Julieta will expand on this more.
Okay. So, well, how about the team size? Well, once we have some variables for the project, like as Gabriel mentioned, a scope, budget, expectations, time to market gap, we feel that we are able to suggest team size options. The typical Scrum team composition is made up of 7 to 10 members, one Scrum Master, or we can have 5 to 7 development engineers, 2 to 3 QA engineers, but we always suggest to add 1 QA per every 2 developers. This is just a sweet spot in terms of productivity, because we feel very comfortable working with the team size and the agile activities are implemented smoothly. However, if the team size increases, so does the number of conflicts, resulting in decreased level of cohesions. So this impact directly into the productivity. Sorry. When that's happened, the right thing to do is split the team into sub-teams. Each sub-teams works as individual teams, so We are reporting at the same Scrum Masters and the Pro Owner, and we work coordinatedly to achieve the client's goal. Sub-teams are more effective and easier to manage. Also, we will increase the productivity and overall client satisfaction. As I mentioned before, you can have one product owner, but you also can have multiple teams, that like 7 or 10 people, and each team has a shared Scrum Master. Everyone is working in the same product backlog. So again, this is just a suggestion based of our experience working with largest companies. So it's work. So I just share with you what can be the best solution for team size. Mm-hmm. Okay. So okay.
Great. So and usually, I mean, you're speaking about large companies, and in large companies and large teams means many times means different locations, right? And having multiple locations is another key factor to be analyzed. Some of the typical questions we receive are: will my teams be distributed in various locations? How can they communicate effectively if they're separated? What do I need on my side to be able to work with teams in multiple locations? And how can you grant visibility to what the team is doing and their progress?
Okay, I think that those are good questions. And as I was listening to your question, I was wondering if we would have asked those questions 15 years ago. I guess not. If we do a little bit of memory to some years ago, the idea of working with distributed people around the globe in real time with high interaction was uncommon. But today, several factors allow companies to successfully work with distributed teams. Some of these factors are online collaboration tools, more bandwidth, and good practices that make the teamwork simpler and faster. But why are we talking about team location? I believe the answer is around the talent. Nowadays, it is hard to get the best talent and skilled people in just one place. Top talent is spread around the globe, making it difficult to find for local-only companies. But there is another important factor related to distributed teams. I bet the audience is familiar with the term working from home. Many companies are being kind of forced to adopt more flexible policies related to working from home. It is motivated by professionals that are looking for a better work-life balance by being able to work, or at least partially, from home. If you think so, this is also a form of distributed work. We can have a lot of people in the same city, but working from many different places. It has its advantage and disadvantage. But something critical about working from home is that it requires a good management in order to ensure the productivity and the project success. Let me expand on this with a real example from one of the projects that we are currently leading. Okay. The client is one of the leaders in the business services industry, and they are outsourcing to 2 different software companies in different continents. And apart from that, this company has its own development teams. So we have at least 3 distributed teams working on the same product with some clear difference between them. Just to mention a few, and most important for me, are the time zone, cultural difference, and the business knowledge. The question here is, how can we address those differences and develop a powerful synergy between those teams for the project success? The answer is quite simple: team management and effective communication. And I think that those team management and effective communication should be the top priority for any company that is going to outsource its services. I want to expand them later in one of the other topics.
Okay, thanks, Gabriel. And I think that having people in multiple locations requires strong processes and a mature methodology to avoid the typical problems, right? And methodology is always something critical to define. Here are, you can see on our screen some of the questions we usually receive regarding methodology. Is the company familiar with agile methodologies? We're already working with a given methodology. Do we have to change it? So what do you think, Julieta?
Okay, so then many methodology questions sometimes came when we have this kind of situation. So sometimes seems like a minor decision to be made, but it has big implication on how the teams perform and the coordination between client and provider. First things that you need to understand is that the methodology conditions and determine the team compositions. That's why agreeing on a methodology of a version of one is critical to generate real results. In our case, we are very aligned to agile methodologies, but what is meant that is not the only alternative. Team composition needs to adapt the reality of current teams and methodology used by the client. In some company, well, we know that still use waterfall for large development efforts. The provider sometimes is aligned to the agile, but should be able to create a team and a way of interaction that bring the best of both worlds to the project. So in many cases, as companies have no previous experience in outsourcing, they rely on the provider to select and apply a methodology. This is not just a matter of saying, well, we are agile, let's implement 100% agile. The software provider needs to understand that the requirement of the clients to create a unique form of Scrum that will deliver the highest values to the team. So I would like to share with you two specific situations that probably illustrate how effective engagement works. First example is a company from the digital advertising industry. I remember that this company has a team in-house that have been working with no agile methodologies for a long time. We engaged them for a large front-end development project using their methodology, but at the same time applying agile best practices. Thus, the goal was won't interfere with the current process, but we help even to make a better process. The second situation that I would like to share with you is a company that was leading from the insurance sector. They were not using Scrum or any type of agile methodology. So they contact us with the software development, and also they had QA needs. After some meetings and presentations and the first interaction that we have with them, they understood that the benefits that the Scrum will have for them. So at that point, they decided to start using Scrum for all their development needs and train everyone involved in the process in the methodology. So right after getting the team certified and aligned, they launched the partnership with us. So this was successful because we could suggest a methodology and they implement, and it was a very good relationship with them. So
Okay, great. Those are great examples, Julieta. Great examples of how a methodology impacts heavily on the composition of a team. Right? And for Scrum roles, for Scrum specifically, roles are something not minor at all. What can we say about defining the roles and responsibilities as another key factor?
okay, well, as you say, it's not a minor thing. It's another crucial aspect of high-performing teams and define the role as a responsibility for the teams. What happens when they are not clearly expressed and when we are and understood both sides of the relationship is sometimes would have some problems, create noises and frictions points that sometimes decrease the productivity of the team and probably affects at the end of every sprint or at the end of every goal to achieve the goals. So first, what is the suggestion that we have? You need to choose the right people to be part of the team. Sounds like something very simple, but it's a process that starts by knowing the skills needed by the teams, also helping to our human resources team to start making the profiles, finding those who match with the skills, align with the company's values, are also what the client needs. Another thing is the second suggestion that we have is it's important either to appoint or elect one person to lead the team based on that person's leadership quality. That person is then responsible for ensuring that the rest of the team works to meet the project goals. Thirdly, one suggestion that is important is please not forget to build a team. Not forget that to build a team is a process that sometimes takes time because we are involved on select the candidate that will have several interviews. Some are technicals, other can be for soft skills, team management, etc., etc. So after they go through the process that I mentioned, then we will select the candidates that are ready to be part of the team. So this process, as I mentioned, this process is a critical process, take time, but it's going to be a benefit for the client because we will save times to them. So they don't have because they don't have to run interviews, coordinate with people, interviews, and just we will provide the benefits to just be ready to start with and ramp up, and after selection ramp up period is complete. So let's talk quick about which are the classic roles that the company needs on the development project. The role that we suggest on following a Scrum methodology will be a Scrum Master or team lead, subject matter expert that can be probably called as technical lead, development engineer, UI or UX developer. Also, we can have some things we have a graphic designer and a QA engineer per two developers that we suggest before. Let's not forget the importance of defining will be on each role's place. There has to be clear on the definition of the responsibility for each team member on both sides, client and provider. If roles and responsibility are not clearly defined, there will be problems and consequences, as we mentioned, friction in the relationship that we need to avoid every time that we build projects, teams.
Right. And as an addition to a bad definition of roles and responsibilities, if the communication between teams members is bad, the frictions and problems will go through the roof. How important is communication, Gabriel?
Well, it is very important. When I was talking about team location, I mentioned the word communication. And I'm going to say it again. I think that communication should be on the top of the list for the team management team in order to ensure their project success. But what happens? Sometimes the communication might be affected by the speaker language or probably the global cultural difference. So everyone should be aware of these barriers and should have a plan in order to address them. I can tell that one of the main constraints is the language. So for these cases, training materials and courses of the country you are working with should be provided to the team. There are so many constraints that we can talk about, but another important constraint for me is to consider the culture, the difference between the culture, seeing that it might affect the communication as well. For this, we recommend to take the time to know about your partner's culture. This will facilitate a better communication of each other, which will lead to a better understanding of the project. And another important aspect of the communication is the resource that we use to keep the people communicated. I'm not going to detail which are the collaboration tools that we can use, but we know and you know that there are a lot of tools that we can have.
Okay, great content you've shared, guys, today. So far we've covered project scope, team size, team location, roles and responsibilities, and communication. Now I think our audience will be happy to hear how you have applied these to real-life examples. Just for everyone to know, we'll see two examples. The first one belongs to a company that had a Scrum expert from the beginning on the project. And the second one belongs to an engagement where there was an unclear project scope definition. Before we continue with the real case studies, please, I would like to remember to ask you to send your questions using the box located to the right of your screen. Okay, Julieta, would you like to start with your example?
Okay. Okay, for us, you mentioned the first example will be experience that we have with a company that developed insurance software. That was the decision for the company to put a Scrum expert at the beginning of the project. It was a person that we choose that is have a lot of experience in the Scrum world. So this person is an expert for organizing the Scrum process and team in the world in general, because he to travel a lot. It was a very good starting because we have everything organizing at the beginning. We follow a Scrum methodology, having in mind role, responsibility, appropriate amount of people by team, and the most important thing, we have in mind what is going to be the project roadmap. As we mentioned before, the key factors, in this project we have in mind all of them. Project scope was defined at the beginning. Methodology as well, as I mentioned, is the Scrum methodology with a Scrum expert. The team size, because the plan was have a small team at the beginning and then have a big team that you are seeing in the picture that show you that we have this was the final team with some around 35 people in the team at the end, because this is just one example. So another thing that was really important, consider that we will have a big team. It was defining role and responsibility, where the main key factor to have in mind was the first to have in mind when we are going to build a big team. We could have a great result because we have in mind that the team increased in 1 year to almost 35 people. So the key was having Scrum Master at the moment of organizing the team, because as you see, it's going to be a big team, roadmap, roles, responsibility, who is going to be the lead for the team, we are having mind at the beginning of the project. So this is one of the examples that was of project that we have in the company that was successful. The organization of the team was thinking at the beginning, and they have an expert that helped to provide his knowledge. It was a great experience. So how about Gabby, your example?
Okay, let me share with you the other real case. What happens when we have an unclear or missing scope definition for the project? If we look at the previous, or if we look at this slide, we can see that we have, as Julieta said, 4 teams, a lot of people there. It is a typical team composition for a larger company that was outsourcing one of its services. But the question here is, can we build these 4 teams at the beginning of the project? Well, yes, we can. But I think that we can do that only if the project scope is clear and defined. We have had situations where setting up the full team at the beginning with no clear scope or undefined backlog and a missing roadmap, a lack of goals, caused some issues like low workload. It also affected the motivation of the team, that tends to go down, and the team morale is affected as well. By experience, we suggest to build a small team at the beginning and complete it gradually as a scope and backlog is in place. As you can see in the picture, we suggest to build a little team with probably with the team leader or Scrum Master, a development engineer, and a QA engineer. This small team can quickly get up to speed on the business and help in completing the backlog and setting the scope. Once the backlog has enough stories for the sprint and the scope is defined, we can jump the rest of the team in. At the end, it will save some money to the company and will ensure a smoothly start.
Okay. Perfect. So those are great examples, and thanks for sharing them with the people. I'm sure they will help everyone at the audience making some crucial decisions. But I think that it will also be very good to help them is the list of recommendations that you have prepared. I know that you prepare a list with some tips and recommendations. Would you like to start with the first one?
Sure. Okay, based on the key factors that we summarize with Gabriel, some of the tips that you can probably have in consideration at the time of building a successful team. First, having a clear project scope definition will help to establish measurable goals and objectives together with the clients. That's Gabriel mentioned in one of the first tips. Gabi, how about when we don't have a clear
Well, it is unclear or undefined, we agree with the client and make suggestions based on our experience.
Good, great. Again, talking about team compositions, so should be, as we suggest, should be made, have in mind to have 10 to 7 members, 1 Scrum Master, 5 to 7 development engineers, 2 to 3 QA engineers. We always suggest 1 QA per every 2 developers. So this is team composition. Another tips is please be careful when the team size increase due the number of conflicts resulting in decreased level of corrections. Because it will impact directly into the team productivity. So the right thing to do is to split the team, as I mentioned, in sub-teams. This is going to be the solution. So how about distribute teams, Gabi?
Well, when building a team, it might be probably distributed around the globe on some locations. So please put focus on having a good management and a good communication.
So talking about methodology, so first things that you need to understand is that the methodology conditions and determines the team compositions. That's why agreeing a methodology with the client at the beginning is critical to generate great results at the end. So how about the team composition need to be adapted to the reality of the current teams and methodology used by the client. So these are the things that we need to negotiate with them when we talk about methodology.
All right. Next tip. Okay, choosing the right people to be part of the team is not easy, but this process starts by knowing the right skill, and this helps to the human resource team to start making the profiles and finding those who match the skill and those who are aligned to the company's values.
Okay, next one. It's important either to appoint or elect one person to lead the team based on the leadership the qualities that they have. The person will be the responsible for encouraging the rest of the team to work and also to meet with the client's project goals. Another thing to have in mind is please don't forget that building a team is a process that takes time, where the candidates are involved in several interviews. As I mentioned when I talk about this key factor is try to save time to the clients coordinating and running the interviews. So the client should be able to get ready to start after selections and wrap up when the ramp-up period is complete. So how about communication?
Communication. Okay, so as I said before, communication is key for any successful team building. So keep in mind that the language and cultural trainings are needed for the team. And also have a communication infrastructure in place. The last one, okay, consider to travel to meet the team or at least have some of them in your office. That will boost and improve the relationship.
Perfect. Thanks for those great tips, guys. I think the content you've shared today is great. And as we have a bunch of questions to answer, I will suggest that we jump now to the Q&A part of the webinar. Thanks everyone for sending your questions. So let's go with the first one. The first one says, for an existing project that needs to be increased in size, how do you select the best people for each role?
Okay. Well, I think that we mentioned in the tips. Well, we know that the process for select the best people for each role is sometimes take time. So I think that to have a human resources team to start making the profiles, finding those who match the skills and align with the client is a good solution. So to have I don't know, a lot of conversation with the client to discover which are their necessity, and then be involved in the process of selecting the people. I think that is going to be a key for selecting the best people of each role. So as a summary, negotiate and have a lot of conversation with the clients to detect which are the necessities that they have. Be involved in the process with human resources department, with interviews and matches the profile with the necessities. Is my suggestion.
Perfect. Great. Okay, I have another question here. And this one says, how do you measure if a team's performance is the best possible?
Okay, good question. When I talk about methodology, I think that one of the things that to have in mind is, or one of the methodology I would suggest is to use Scrum. So if we are going to suggest Scrum, I think that we will, Scrum provide to us daily metrics about the team performance. So if we are going to use, I don't know, a burden chart to measure the performance in the teams, it will provide every day how the team is working. For that reason, I think that one of the things or the tools that can provide these things use Scrum methodology or any agile methodology that give you a daily performance team or visibility about the team performance.
Perfect. So Scrum provides a lot of
Yeah.
tools and graphs that you can use to...
You can see the team performance every day.
Perfect. Great. Here's another one, and this one says, how do you boost communication among distributed teams?
Okay, I think that we talk about it a lot in the webinar, but I think that the first thing that we need to identify are the gaps between the people involved, the people that is working on the teams, and also know about your partner's culture and see what are the difference. And also we have to set the communication infrastructure. We have to choose the right tools to make a good communication. And also we should meet the client face to face. So as I said before, we should travel to the client or have the client in the software provider offices. That will boost the communication a lot.
Perfect. Great. Here's another one. And it says, do you think that having an external Scrum expert is completely necessary for a new project? And I guess this one means that from a project that's starting from scratch. Probably with no previous Scrum experience.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned in the cases, real example that we provide, having a Scrum expert is going to be the best solution for starting a project. So if you as a company can have one Scrum expert, I really I suggest to just use them for the building a project and also for creating a very good team from scratch. So yeah, I think
so it's a good idea.
Great idea.
Perfect. I have one here that I think that probably is the one that we should answer first. This one, how does the ideal team looks like for you guys? I mean, you with the experience, and it's a two-part question. And what's the largest number of people you can have in a team?
Okay, the team size. We suggest to have no more than probably 10 people per team. I think that is a good amount of people that we can manage, or at least project lead or Scrum Master can manage. And the first question, I think that on the way we will know what is the best team, but at least if we take into consideration all the factors that we covered today, we will be so close to a perfect team at the beginning of the project. But with the time, we will know if we choose the right people and the right team.
Okay. Perfect. Sorry about that. Another question here says, besides communication skills, which one could be the main ideal approaches, in your experience, to keep a distributed team committed to a project's objective and to overcome the inherent multilingual or multicultural boundaries? So it's a tough question. Well, I mean, behind communication skills, talking about agile, what do you think is key to keep the team committed to the objectives?
Well, as talking about Scrum, for example, the methodology I would suggest, the communication skills that we need probably by experience is, having daily stand-up meetings to see the progress. It can be a solution. Also, when we have distributed teams to commit the project's goals. So sometimes, I am reading the question saying that we will come. What happens when we have inherent multi-language and multicultural boundary? Scrum provide this kind of daily meetings to discuss which is going to be the what is the project scope or what is the project status. About having distributed team is not a problem, because everyone here will try to be aligned to the different culture or clients that we have. So we are aligned to the culture of the company that we are working. So Scrum provide a good platform for having meetings every day to see to evaluate what is the project status, and also try to minimize the impact of different culture with the different client that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered the question, because there are a lot of things in one question. But
exactly. And I think that having in mind what Gabriel shared some minutes ago, having the possibility to travel to the client location and having intercultural interchange, that's pretty good.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so guys, I have some bad news for you. We're getting lots of questions, right? So we'll try to answer all of them. Okay, here's the next one. Is there any difference between working with hired team members instead of freelancers?
That is an interesting question. I think that there is a difference between working with hired team members instead of freelancers. I used to be a freelance a lot of time ago, and I didn't have the possibility to meet the other people that I was working with. And also the I couldn't see the teamwork. So having people on the same team, meeting with them at least a week if they are distributed is a good thing. I don't think that happens when in freelance work. We probably there is no budget for get all together and know more the business or know more about your team members.
So you mean that productivity might seem increased when they're working all together in the same place? Right. Okay, perfect. Great. And let me check the time here. We still have a couple of minutes. So let's do the last two questions of this webinar. And the first one says, talking about a gradual start. Can you talk about how much time it takes to set the whole team productive?
Well, if we talk about a Scrum, I think that we will need to have a team working, I don't know, and feel comfortable. I think that 3 or 4 sprints for having a team that is going to be to have a good start. Because first sprint 1 and the second sprint, have in mind that we have a sprint for, I don't know, 2 or 4 weeks. I think that you need 1 or 2 sprints to just have a to adapt the teams to the client necessity and feel comfortable working in the business role and and also adapting to the methodology. And then you have 2 sprint more to start working in the project goal. So a suggestion, I think that 4 sprints is good to have a team just working and being having the productivity.
Perfect, great. And last question of today. It says, would it work if we start with the development team first and when the product is done, add the QA members? What do you think? Is that a good practice?
I don't think so. We don't recommend that. I believe that, for my experience, that QA members should start from the beginning as they are part of the team. They are good taking the knowledge of the business, so the QA testing will be easier if they start from the beginning.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks very much for answering the questions, and thanks everyone for sharing your questions with us. If there were additional questions that you wanted to ask but we couldn't answer right now, or if you would like more information on this topic, please contact us. We'll gladly answer your questions and follow up with any extra information you may need. We will share a link to the slides and the video recording shortly. In that same email, you will also find the instructions for a free 30-minute consulting session to discuss your current situation. I encourage you to use this unique opportunity. Thanks everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure to share this live event with you. Stay tuned for future live events and fresh content releases from Bellatrix. You can see there our social media handles. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see also many of our past webinars. Again, thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.